Getting comfortable with Illustrator, but just need a little bit more help? This sequel video is just for you. Hello and welcome back to my Adobe Illustrator for Digital Fabrication, the sequel. I'm James, and I'm just going to be going over a couple other basic techniques related to my sample acrylic bracelet that I will be laser cutting out. So let's just jump in. Okay, so if you remember from the first video part of this series, I have my outside kind of template of the 1.5" by 6" acrylic bracelet that I'm going to cut out, and I started showing how to use the pen tool to draw the bracelet form that actually is going to be laser cut, since this rectangle is just a template. So I've gone in and edited it just using the basic handles and control points and pen tool that I showed in the first video. And what I'm going to do, if you notice the layers over here, this is the way that I like to work to separate out different parts of my piece that I'm working with. So I'm going to lock the template so that I don't mess with anything. And in fact, I'm going to lock the layer that has the actual bracelet that is going to be cut out there. Because the next thing we're going to do is add a pattern and then some other areas that are going to be pierced out of the inside of the bracelet. So I have a source files document that I'm pulling other drawings that I've made previously that I'm going to use in this piece. And so over here I have an anvil and a hammer that I've drawn in the same ways that you've seen before, just using the pen tool. This currently has a black fill on it. And then I've put that hammer and anvil together into a pattern. And I didn't want you to be bored while I worked out all the details of laying out the pattern, but it's just arranging it, nothing fancy there. And I'm going to use this pattern to etch the surface of the bracelet. So let's get in how to do that. One thing we haven't covered is grouping objects, which is if you want to treat several different objects as one thing, you can select them and then group them, and then in the future that will act as a single object. So you can see here right now that the hammer and anvil are their own object, but as I arrange them into the pattern, if I go in and select them, you can see it selects everything because I've grouped them. And a lot of these functions are under the object menu, so all the different basic transformations and arranging in layers and aligning them to each other and things like that. So I've grouped that, and you can also ungroup them if you do need to work on individual elements. And so I'm going to bring these together, and then I'm going to use another tool that we haven't talked about, a clipping mask, to cut the pattern down to the size of the bracelet blank. So one thing that's important with clipping masks is that the window that you want to cut is above, or the layer that it's on is above the other layer that you want to cut away. So I have that set up in my layers here where the pattern is below the blank layer. So I'm going to just drag it on down there. I'm going to, if you pick the corners, you can see that different arrows will come up, and so this lets you dynamically scale or rotate your item or your group or something like that. So just to make it a little interesting, I'm going to rotate it so it still covers the complete blank, but just add a little bit of visual interest there. And then I'm going to go in with the selection tool and select both of these so you can see the bracelet blank pattern there in the middle and the pattern over it. And under properties, you can see make clipping mask. So I'm just going to select that, and you can see how it trims the pattern down to the size of the bracelet. And that's pretty much all there is to some basic rotations and then also clipping masks. And it is exactly an 1.5" by 6" that I want to put onto the bracelet. So I am going to copy this. Normally I just do the keyboard shortcuts, but to show you, I've copied that. I'm going to go back to my sample bracelet, and I have my own layer for the pattern here, that layer is selected, and I'm going to paste that back in. There we go, and you can see it's green of that layer. And I want to put it exactly in the right place on the bracelet. So you could, of course, click and drag and put it kind of close, But to make sure that it's exactly where you want, you can go to the property menu of that object and then picking its upper corner. If you remember, we were 1/8 of an inch away. So I'm just retyping those values so that it is placed exactly where I want it to go. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some of those individual anvils and hammers in, and I'm going to have them be pierced out sections in the center of it. So first I'm going to create another new layer, and that's going to be for the anvil. And I'm going to create another new layer, and this is going to be for the hammers. All right. And so we'll go back to the source files and bring those in to cut out some interior parts. All right, so I'm going to go back to my source files, select my anvil, and I am just going to copy that. Go back to the bracelet, select my anvil layer, and paste it right there. And I'm just going to just kind of place it approximately what I think looks good. And we're going to do the same thing with the hammer. So again, copying it, going back to this, picking my hammers layer and pasting it. And we're actually going to do that, let's say, another time. All right, so we've got 2 of these guys, and I'm going to just, by taking those different handles on the selection box, I can rotate it. Now, if you want to hold down the shift, it will rotate it in 45-degree increments. So I'm going to do that and rotate this one the other way. So we're ready to go, and bring that there. And I'm keeping it solid for right now, just so I can see a little better what I'm doing and where I'm arranging it. And let's zoom in a little bit. And of course, anytime with the layers, just to see how things are going, if we want to make that pattern, we're going to lock the pattern so we don't mess with it, but we're going to make it go away just so we can see the placement of these a little bit easier within the overall bracelet. And I'm not going to be super fussy with it right now, but I'm going to say that we're pretty happy with it. Now, since I want these to be laser cut out of the center of it, like pierced out, I want to change the line weight, and I'm going to lock all those other layers so that I don't manipulate anything. And we're going to go here and swap the stroke for, I'm going to hold down shift and select all of these, and then I'm going to set that up so that the stroke is black, and we want to pick the fill so that there is no fill, and then we can go to the properties and again type in 0.001 inches, which will automatically translate to that 0.0272 point, and those are all set and ready to be laser cut. So it's difficult to see for us in such a thin line, but how this will turn out when it's sent to the laser is it'll have these hammers and anvils cut out of the center of this kind of wiggly exterior of the bracelet, and let's make that visible again, that pattern will be etched into the surface. Now, the last thing that you need to do before you send it to the laser is that exterior template. If you just make it not seen, then it won't confuse anything. Otherwise, the laser would actually draw that square box around your piece. So we don't need to do that. And this file is ready to go to the laser. And I'm not covering that because every laser is a little bit different. But it basically depends on what comes up in your print dialog box. It's almost the same as sending it to a regular printer. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and you're fully equipped with some basic tools to just get into some laser etching and cutting of your own design. Good luck! If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can hear from me when I post future videos. Thanks for stopping by.